Joining me now for more on this is Menzies Research Centre Senior Fellow Nick Cater. Nick, we know the Greens back this policy. They want to see it extended to super balances over $2 million. This policy is bad enough in its current form. What's it going to look like with the Greens' input?
You dread to think, don't you, Rita? But the Greens, of course, are at one with Labor on this thing at least, that both of them think that people who save for their own retirement are bad people, that there's something disreputable about putting money aside over your working life in order that you can pay your own way when you retire. It is, and I'm not sure what the priorities are that Jim Chalmers says he's going to spend this money on, because actually the best thing you can do is incentivise people to become self-funded in retirement, because that will save you about $500,000 over the lifetime of that person if they're not claiming the public pension. You know, they're probably claiming save you about another $200,000 if they're on private medical insurance, which they probably most likely are. So we should be encouraging people, surely, Rita, to look after themselves in retirement if they can find the means to do so, rather than this thing of forcing everybody back into the benevolence of the state. That's why I think the Liberals should have a fundamental objection to this. There's no room for negotiation. And I'm glad that Ted O'Brien has firmed up on that position.
Now, Judith Sloan has written an excellent piece in The Australian today on Jim Chalmers' wishful analysis of yesterday's GDP figures. She writes, Jim Chalmers is living on another planet when he tells us with all the uncertainty in the world, any growth is a decent outcome. This is not a decent outcome. Taking out the rise of GDP per capita in the last December quarter, 8 of the 9 past quarters have been negative GDP per capita, a reasonable measure of living standards. The economy is on life support, and it would be better to recognise this. Nick, is the Treasurer living in fantasy land? Surely he knows how grim these figures are.
Well, there is really an outbreak of economic illiteracy in the political class in this country, in the media class. I fear that Jim Chalmers is suffering from it because, you know, what is a per capita recession? It means that families, on average, are will be poorer next year than they are this year. That's the reality of it. They'll have less money, less wages, less money in their pockets. And I tell you what, Rita, in some of the places that I visited during the election out in Western Sydney, it is biting. There are families out there that are really hurting, really badly hurting, that are queuing up at food kitchens, the entire family, to get their dinner. Now, none of that is apparent, of course, in the nice suburbs where people like Jim Chalmers live. You know, people are doing quite fine there. But this is really causing a lot of pain, and it's very discriminatory in the pain it causes, in that the poorest get hurt worse by a per capita recession. So where this fits in with Labor's mantra of no one left behind, I'm not really sure.
Meanwhile, as we predicted on this program, the leaks against Greens turned Labor Senator Dinda Cox have begun in earnest. It was always going to happen after she defected from the Greens to Labor. We know more of the investigation into allegations of workplace misconduct made against the senator by former staffers, and now reports that Dinda Cox allegedly called One Nation leader Pauline Hanson a effing retard in leaked text messages. Nick, the Greens are understandably furious with Senator Cox, and we can probably expect to see more damaging leaks, more damaging text messages.
They're all class, aren't they, the Greens, when it comes to their language? I mean, things that you couldn't actually say on this channel. They think that's okay to use that kind of language. I'll tell you what, Pauline Hanson's One Nation did considerably better in the last election in terms of the votes increase than the Greens party. So perhaps they should be looking at Pauline and asking her what the secret is. The secret, of course, is to actually get back with real people and real people's concerns, not off in sort of activist fairyland, which is where the Greens are now. People have been pointing out that they're losing, they're a bit down on the number of Aboriginal people represented in Parliament on behalf of the Greens. I'll tell you what, they are overrepresented in the people with double-barrelled names. Have you noticed that? We've got Hanson Young, Wish Wilson, Ormond Payne, and they're generally, in my experience, people that come from pretty privileged backgrounds, and that's where the Greens are. They really are people with luxury beliefs.
Nick, yes, that is an interesting observation. Certainly in my electorate, I noticed a lot of the Greens, a lot of the Teals were very white, very privileged, and of a certain age demographic, older age demographic. It might be different where you are. Now, let's move along to Greta Thunberg. Israel has threatened to raid the boat she's on, which is currently en route to Gaza, carrying her and a number of other leftist activists. Nick, what does Greta and her feral mates, what do they hope to achieve with this activism, going into a war zone and saying that they're going to bring love, humanitarian aid and break the blockade?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's virtue signalling, although I don't know that I'd be suggesting that a young lady does a virtue signalling activity in somewhere where she's liable to get shot or worse. So that's what it is. But it this goes to the mind, doesn't it, of the extreme left, which is where she sits. They think they know everything about everything. She thinks she knows everything about climate science, for instance. She understands perfectly why the weather warms and sometimes it cools. Now she thinks she knows everything about the history of the Middle East and who's on the right side of history and who's not. It's just the ignorance of these people that annoys me, Rita. They're allowed to have their opinions. Sure, they can make up their minds, but first they've got to understand what they're talking about. And I think in Greta's case, I think she's rather... She would have been better off spending more time in school and less time on protests, really, because then she might actually know something about what she's talking about.
Well, there seems to be a lot of crossover with these activist groups, Nick, the ones who are all about climate change, the anti-Israeli protesters, the race-obsessed ones. It's pretty much the same mob, isn't it? And that's why she has just effortlessly gone from climate change to now this anti-Israeli activism.
Yeah, of course, our Green Party has done exactly the same thing, as we've commented before. This seems to be a natural progression. When they start losing traction on one issue, I think they always look for another one to move on to. So, sooner or later, they'll get bored with the Palestinian cause and they'll find something else. I don't know what it'll be, but they always have to be sort of for their own sense of righteousness. They have to be one step ahead of everybody else. And it always really has to be just about that, nothing more.
And it's always catastrophe. It's just catastrophizing everything. Yeah. It's about to be the end of the world. It's a genocide. It's the end of the world as we know it with climate change, and just doomsayers. Nick, before you go, President Donald Trump has banned the citizens of 12 countries from travelling to the US and introduced travel restrictions on 7 other countries. Some of the banned countries include Afghanistan, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan. Let's hear from the president earlier today.
The recent terror attack in Boulder, Colorado, has underscored the extreme dangers posed to our country by the entry of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted, as well as those who come here as temporary visitors and overstay their visas. We don't want them. In the 21st century, we've seen one terror attack after another carried out by foreign visa overstayers from dangerous places all over the world.
Nick, this is reminiscent of a similar ban in his first term, and though that caused enormous angst in the media, it was actually pretty popular with the punters. What do you make of this latest ban?
Well, the first thing is none of these 12 countries are on my bucket list, Rita, and I doubt they're on yours either. They are nasty places. There are places where either they use terrorism or they harbour terrorists and to wage war against the United States, Israel and others, or they have uncontrolled crime, drug smuggling, etc. So it's just a hard lesson that some countries don't seem to be able to learn, that people from these environments are likely to bring the same lawlessness or the same political views to your country that they had in theirs.
Nick Cater, thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rita.